The Powers of the Mind, Part 5. If this is true, it is temptation enough for the mind to exert its highest. But as with every other science, it is very difficult to make any great achievement, so also with this, nay, much more. Yet most people think that these powers can be easily gained. How many are the years you take to make a fortune? Think of that. First, how many years do you take to learn electrical science or engineering? And then you have to work all the rest of your life. Again, most of the other sciences deal with things that do not move, that are fixed. You can analyze the chair does not fly from you. But this science deals with the mind, which moves all the time. The moment you want to study it, it slips. Now, the mind is in one mood, the next moment, perhaps, it is different, changing all the time. In the midst of all this change, it has to be studied, understood, grasped, and controlled. How much more difficult, then, is this science? It requires rigorous training. People ask me why I do not give them practical lessons. Why? It is no joke. I stand upon this platform talking to you, and you go home and find no benefit, nor do I. Then you say it's all bosh. It is because you want to make a bosh of it. I know very little of this science, but the little that I gained, I worked for 30 years of my life, and for 6 years I have been telling people the little that I know. It took me 30 years to learn it, 30 years of hard struggle. Sometimes I worked at it 20 hours during the 24 hours. Sometimes I slept only 1 hour in the night. Sometimes I worked whole nights. Sometimes I lived in places where there was hardly a sound, hardly a breath. Sometimes I had to live in caves. Think of that. And yet I know little or nothing. I have barely touched the hem of the garment of this science. But I can understand that it is true and vast and wonderful. Now, if there is anyone amongst you who really wants to study this science, he will have to start with that sort of determination, the same as, even more than, that which he puts into any business of life. And what an amount of attention does business require, and what a rigorous taskmaster it is. Even if the father, the mother, the wife, or the child dies, business cannot stop. Even if the heart is breaking, we still have to go to our place of business when every hour of work is a pang. That is business, and we think that it is just that it is right. This science calls for more application than any business can ever require. Many men can succeed in business, very few in this, because so much depends upon the particular constitution of the man studying it. As in business, all may not make a fortune, but everyone can make something. So in the study of this science, each one can get a glimpse which will convince him of its truth and of the fact that there has been men who realized it fully. This is the outline of the science. It stands upon its own 2 feet and in its own light and challenges comparison with any other science. There have been charlatans, there have been magicians, there have been cheats and more here than in any other field. Why? For the same reason that the more profitable the business, the greater the number of charlatans and cheats. But that is no reason why a business should not be good. And one thing more, it may be good intellectual gymnastics to listen to all the arguments and an intellectual satisfaction to hear of the wonderful things. But if any one of you really wants to learn something beyond that, merely attending lectures will not do. That cannot be taught in lectures, for it is life, and life can only convey life. If there are any amongst you who are really determined to learn it, I shall be very glad to help them.